As soon as the sun set, I started to get ready for my video. When the moon was in full view, I threw my things in my car and drove off in a hurry. Tonight is the Purge. Tonight's the night Mike dies. He needs to die for my viewers. They've been very patient with me this year. His house wasn't even boarded up when I arrived. That ticked me off. Normally someone would be pleased by this, but to me it only looked like pure ignorance. He must think that he doesn't have any need to worry. Oh, how he is so wrong. He's about to figure out just how wrong he is. A smirk spreads across my face as I thought of his screams and hearing him beg for mercy. My hands start shaking with anticipation as I get out of my car and grab my sack of tools. Afterwards, I walked up to his door and knocked on it. He opened it slowly. When he saw it was me, fear flashed across his face. I tried to slam the door, but I stopped it with my foot. It didn't hurt because I was wearing my military boots. My smirk grew wider as he ran. I let him run because I wanted to enjoy every waking moment of this. Following at a walking pace and shutting the door behind me, I let the sack of tools fall off my shoulder. It made a strange clatter as the objects inside bumped into each other. I bent down and pulled out handcuffs, a blindfold, and cuffs for his feet. Then I walked into the kitchen and turned on the stove. Afterwards, I yanked out a metal rod, putting it over the fire onto the stove. Nodding at a job well done, I went in search for my latest victim. It took a bit, but I found him. He was hiding in the bathroom. The bathroom I checked last because I knew where he was. When I found him curled up in the bathtub, that spot, he started screaming like a pig off to slaughter. Which wasn't far off, besides the fact pigs aren't going to get tortured. Tying him up and blindfolding him, I threw him onto the bed. How badly I wanted to kill him right now, but I have to have self-control. Plus, I promised my viewers a good show. I set up my video camera at the end of the bed. Turning on the camera, I walked into the kitchen to retrieve the metal rod, which was red hot. When I got back, I smirked into the camera. "Thank you all for being so patient with me," he whined in the background. "Now let's get on with the show," I laughed. If you haven't figured out yet, I have a channel where I post videos where I kill people. But that's only once a year. My people absolutely adore and love it. I ripped off his shirt and I slammed the burning rod on him. His screams filled the entire house. I bit my lips so my laughter wouldn't cover it up. I moved the rod slowly over his right nipple and he erupted in more screams. After his nipple was burned beyond recognition, I moved over to the left one. Again his screams filled the room. Once the rod cooled down, I threw it onto the floor. I grabbed the camera and moved it to where they would be able to see the damage. Then I put my camera back. I stripped him of his pants and boxers. I pulled out a knife in my right hand and his groin in the other. He hardened when I touched him and I couldn't help but laugh. Slowly I started to cut his member off. He yelled all sorts of profanity at me and wailed loudly. I patched up his wound quickly and proceeded to pull out a cloth. I placed the cloth over his face and then poured water over it. He struggled more and he made some gurgling sounds. When I removed the cloth, he gasped for air. I forced him to sit up and tied him to the bedpost, his legs tied to the bed. I pulled out some bricks from my bag. I placed one brick after another under his legs. Once I reached 5, you could hear his legs snapping. As soon as I put another under his legs, they snapped it too. Along with that was a sharp cry that escaped his throat. I smirked and looked at the blood flowing out onto the bed with amused eyes. I ripped off his blindfold and smashed my lips against his. This is something I do to all my victims. It signals the torture is about to end. Well, it signals that the last part of the torture is to come, considering they aren't going to die very peacefully. I pulled away and picked up a jar of bugs from my bag. Then I proceeded to pull his weak jaw open. Once I opened the jar, I dumped him down his throat. I shut his mouth closed before the bugs could get out. There was a glass of water on the nightstand next to us, so I grabbed it and forced him to drink it all. Now you could totally hear the bugs eating away at his throat and scratching away at his intestines. The smirk grew yet again as his face went pallid. How merciless I could be to my victims. When his body still and his eyes wide open, I ran my index and middle fingers over his eyes, pulling the eyelids down. Laughing hysterically, I grabbed the camera, giving my viewers a better look at the bloody mess on the bed. Putting the camera back in its original place, I stared straight into it. The first person to view this will be my next victim, I said, my smirk growing by the second. I could almost see the person's face pale. You know, you're my next victim, especially if you saw this video first. In fact, I'm behind you right now. Why not turn around and meet your fate?